Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Captive Audience. It's yet another wonderful Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. We're 3 days into this, or 7 days into this, I should say. And wow, we have got a lot going on already. My co host, Leslie Schneider, is on her way. She's running late, but we're going to go ahead and roll with this. And hopefully she'll join us here shortly. Please feel free to join me with some chats on the side here so I can see what you're thinking, and then I'm just going to kind of wing it here and let it rip. What a pleasant surprise to wake up the other morning. And in fact, my wife called me and said, "Have you turned on the news?" And to see that our fantastic military has gone in and snatched Maduro and his wife, apparently right out of bed, with no casualties. I mean, it's just unbelievable that we have that kind of skill, that kind of technology, that kind of planning and strategy to pull that off is absolutely amazing. And for those of you who are old enough to remember back in the what 80s when Carter tried to do a similar uh, type mission to get the hostages out of Iraq, and we ended up with a helicopter crash in the desert. We all remember what a disaster that was. What a tremendous comparison contrast. And then we all remember what happened with Biden and his administration, and they're leaving out of Afghanistan, arguably one of the worst military disasters that we've had in the entire history of the country. So to have us have the capability to fly in, grab this guy and his wife, have no casualties on our part, no loss of equipment, and fly right back out. And what a couple of hours later, he's being frog marched into a jail in New York City is, there are no words to describe how amazing that is and what a technological feat that is. And there's a few other things about this that are worth mentioning that make it so amazing. So you realize the Chinese president was just meeting with Maduro the day before. The Chinese delegation, in fact, was still in town. Now, in the neighborhood I came from, that'd be known as a gangster facial. That is so New York City what Trump did. And you can't tell me that that was an accident. I mean, literally, the Chinese delegation was in town, and we came in and snatched that guy to bed and threw him in prison. Um, a couple of other things of note with regard to this: that country, or that Maduro, had been buying military equipment from Russia and China in order to prevent this sort of thing, and that technology didn't do a single thing, which goes to show you how much better our military is, how much better our technology is than anything they can field. So it's just an incredible feat, no matter which way you slice it. I get so tired of hearing leftists try to build up China as being some gigantic military power when all it takes is a little scraping of the surface to when you realize it's a paper tiger. Yes, they have a lot of troops that they can put in the field, but we're not going to be fighting those kinds of wars in the future. The wars in the future are going to be wars of technology. And we have an ocean between us and them, so they can't do anything with that. The troops that they have are conscripts. These are people who don't want to fight. They often speak a whole bunch of different languages. They're impoverished, can't read and write, can't operate the equipment, and you see the stuff doesn't even work. And things that are made in Russia, well, they've got a whole history of building things that are a disaster. We all remember the car, the Yugo. And for those of you who are brave enough who maybe flew Aeroflot back in the 70s, you knew you were risking your life if you flew that. You'd rather drive a couple hundred miles than fly on an Aeroflot flight. So it's just incredible to see that and watch that happen, in action. So who's the boss in the Western Hemisphere? That was entirely what this was about, was establishing that the United States is going to be the boss in our own backyard. And it's about time we had a Theodore Roosevelt walk softly and carry a big stick moment. I couldn't have been more fired up. I'm so tired of the namby-pamby, mealy-mouthed foreign diplomacy. It's about, and this needed to happen. And the thing is it's a great thing for the Venezuelan people. It is hugely popular with them, the ones that are in Venezuela, and the ones that have immigrated to the United States. 25% of the population has been lost to that country from people trying to escape the regime. Can you imagine 1 in 4 people leaving the country because it's been run so poorly? My understanding is they've had the greatest weight loss program in the last like 15 years of any country. Population has lost like 30% of its weight, and that's not because they were fat in the first place. That's because they can't get enough to eat since Hugo Chavez implemented socialism 20 years ago, and then Maduro came in and then doubled down on that. So they've taken a country that should be rich by any measure and absolutely destroyed it. So, so it is absolutely fantastic. This is happening not just for the United States and for the American people. And another thing uh, that I think a lot of people are missing with this is people will say, well, why are we, going to Venezuela? Why aren't we doing this with other countries that are in similar circumstances? Well, realpolitik is such that you have to do things that are in the best interests of the United States. If that helps other countries, then that's great. And in this case, this country happens to be sitting on one of the richest, if not the richest, oil deposits in the world. And I don't think there's any getting around it. There's no being ashamed of it. Yeah, that's a part of it. Because if we let countries like China get their hands on those kinds of and narco terrorists get their hands on those kinds of oil reserves, what do you think they're going to do with the money that they get from it? It'll be just like the Middle East. They'll take the funds, buy weapons, and then those weapons wind up being pointed at us. So it's a strategic defense imperative that we take this country and give it back to its own people. And then the other side to that is their ability to. You hear people talk all the time about, can we run countries? What's been our track record with taking over countries? And all that anyone ever does is point to the failures. And the obvious failures are like Afghanistan and Iraq, grant you that. But people forget historically, there's been situations where the United States has come in and we rebuilt countries. People forget about West Germany in World War II. We built that, went in, ran the country, got it on its feet, and it became like the third or fourth biggest economy by GDP in the world. Did the same thing with Japan post World War II, rebuilt it from the ashes. It became like the second biggest country in the world per GDP. Panama, and I'm talking before the Panama Canal was built, went in, built the canal, rebuilt that company. And this is not the first time we've had a Maduro situation, because in the Reagan administration, we went in and got Manuel Noriega out of there and did the exact same thing for almost the exact same conditions. So there's historic precedent for this. It needed to be done. It's in the best interest not only of the United States, but in the best interest of the Venezuelan citizens. And so I think it's a historically fantastic thing. And one other thing I thought worth pointing out, and I wrote a rant about this the other day. One of the things that people don't see is when you think about these countries where we've gone in and we've been able to nation build, they would call it, right? So there's some places where we nation built and it's gone very badly. So you take Afghanistan, you take Iraq, got that. But you also have situations where it's gone very well. You take like West Germany, for example. So then you ask yourself the question, what are the differences between the countries where it went well and the countries where it didn't go well? And I'll tell you, and this thing you never hear anywhere else, the difference is it goes well in countries that are Western. And remember, Western is just a fancy way of saying Christian. So countries that have a Christian foundation, you can nation build in those because those countries have a culture that's capable of handling democratic institutions. Countries that don't have that capability, in this case, Muslim countries, the culture is not conducive to democratic institutions. So you can't nation build in those countries. So as we look at this sort of thing moving forward, the thing to do is to stay away from those countries that are not Western. And if you're going to do this, you have to do it in countries that are Western because the culture has the capacity to handle democratic institutions. And just to go one level lower, just think of Christianity in general. Christianity doesn't force you to do anything. You can choose to be Christian or not be Christian. If you're gay, that's okay. You can still live in a Christian society. We're not going to throw you off a building. We're going to people are going to try to persuade you to a better lifestyle, but no one's going to kill you for it. Try that in a Muslim country, for example. That's just not going to fly. So you take that same thing and you flow it through every other thing. And the same thing is true of these countries. You take like India, you take these countries that are Buddhist, or these countries that have these caste systems. Well, those caste systems will cause them to underperform economically because, in effect, you're taking huge swaths of the population and removing them from participation in economic life. So let's say, for example, you're in the Middle East and women can't participate. That's 50% of the talent pool taken right out off the top. Let's say you're in the Middle East or North Africa and you're okay with slavery. Those people who are slaves, they're taken out. So say taken out from economic production, in the economy, economic participation. You do those kinds of things, and you have a caste system. You're born into a certain level. You're born an untouchable in India, for example, and don't think they don't still have that. You cannot move them down. That's a huge part of the talent pool completely taken out. So when you start looking at those things, You begin to realize there's a reason why Western countries dramatically outperform non-Western countries. It's because the culture, and culture is just a fancy way of saying the behaviors that we choose to use. And the behaviors that we choose to use come from what? They come from religiosity, because religion is what drives behavior. What purpose is there for anything for religion other than to ask you to behave a certain way? So we know that certain behaviors are more conducive to a country being successful. Just look around the world and you can see that this is true. The direction of immigration tells you all that you need to know. The countries that have the where the people are trying to go to are the Christian countries, or the Western countries, if you prefer that word. So we're talking the United States, you're talking Germany, you're talking Great Britain, you're talking France. Those, and you're talking Canada, Australia. Those are the places people are trying to go to. And where are they trying to get away from? Well, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Pakistan, anything with "stan" at the end, they're trying to get the hell away from it. China, North Korea. Those are the places where you build walls to keep people in, versus countries in the West, we had to build walls to keep people out. And the reason for that is because the cultural institutions, which is just a fancy way of saying their religious institutions, are what cause them to run the way that they run. A great example, and this is one of the reasons why I love sports. If you listen to coaches, what do coaches talk about all the time? They talk about culture, the culture in our locker room, the culture of our team. You might think of, thinking of, I'm not a big football fan anymore, but once upon a time, the Tennessee Titans, they were known for defense. Defense, this team's culture is defense. You play us, we're not going to score very many points, but guess what? You're not scoring any points at all. And if we win the game 10-3, guess what? We still win. You go back to the early 2000s, and the Rams were the same thing, but they were offense. We're going to, you might score 30 points, but we're going to score 40 points. That's the culture of the team. So culture dictates behavior. Behavior dictates results. Religion dictates the culture. Culture dictates the behavior. The behavior dictates the results. Look around the world, and you can see where do you get superior results? Well, you get superior results in Western countries, and that is the reason why. So that is my opinion. I think the evidence speaks for itself, but just some food for thought. And yes, Marjorie, I agree. Venezuela was a democracy, and it was doing fantastic when it was a democracy. And then when Hugo Chavez came in with the communist dream, they basically destroyed that country. And just like this happens in every case around the world, the amazing thing about this is it's not like this is the first time. You go around the globe, we've got two countries that were what I call it a beautiful case study in this. So you have North and South Korea, same cultures, split them in half. One free, democratic, the other communist. One is a 20 million man slave encampment where people are virtually starving to death. That's North Korea. South Korea, the 14th biggest economy in the world. You take Germany into World War II, cut it in half. West Germany, democratic principles and freedom. East Germany, communist. West Germany went on to become one of the fourth biggest economy in the world after World War II. East Germany, right down in the toilet, just like you'd expect. You go around the world, it's the same thing every single time it's tried. And the amazing thing about this experiment, we're duplicating that experiment inside the United States. You have the blue cities, the blue swaths of the country, and you have the red swaths of the country. Where does the crime happen? Where are they closing stores? Where do they have food deserts? Where are there riots in the streets? Where are you afraid to walk around at night? Where can't you get jobs? They're all occurring in blue cities. So you have cities like Baltimore, Chicago, Los Angeles, Memphis, Detroit. You don't even have to know what party runs them. You can tell by the crime statistics, who's running those countries. Is because the more they tend towards communism, and the other side, the other thing that this no one talks about, the less they tend towards religiosity, the worse they get. The less that they have, the better they get. It's really pretty simple. So it's so great to see that this is happening in Venezuela. So, and there's a few other things to speak on around this whole thing with Venezuela and what's happening there. But there's also, let's see. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Iran. This is another one. There are so many things that are happening all simultaneously that you can hardly believe it. So I'm going to put this over here. You can take a look and read this. But Trump threatens the Iranian government over protests And this is another fascinating one. I was just watching a news report this morning where it was the Pahlavi, I think his name is the Shah of Iran's son, who would have been the Shah had the Shah not been overthrown back in what 77, 78, when they had that great hostage crisis and that sort of thing. But the national news doesn't report, as you know, what's going on in these countries. So you have to look at the sources to find that. So here's just a couple of things that are going on in Iran right now that most of us Americans aren't aware of. So one of the reasons they're having all of these protests over there is the country is literally running out of water. Now, think for yourself. This is a desert country, and they're running out of water. Now, they have plenty of water, but it's the government's mismanagement of all of the dams in the country. So they started building an excessive number of dams, and there you have to be very careful with your water because you're in the desert. So you have to have great technology in order to with your farming so the water doesn't evaporate. Now I don't know a whole lot about that, but I can guess for sure what happened. So all of these reservoirs and all of these dams that they built, the water sits outside and the stuff just evaporates. They don't have great irrigation systems or ways to get the farmland irrigated so that the water doesn't evaporate. So all this water is wasted. So basically, in their major cities, you turn on the water faucet and no water is coming out. Now, there's probably nothing more dangerous in the world than live in a desert area and have no water. But that's literally what's happening in Iran. It is in a world of trouble. The real, the equivalent of their money, if you will, lost 20% of its value in December alone. Uh, Inflation's up 42%. Food prices are up 72%. Health and medical items were up 50%. It is an absolute disaster in Iran. And so I'm not sure how we help them. That's as I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, I think putting troops on the ground in places that are non-Western is a very dangerous thing because I'm not sure. I don't think they're capable of handling democratic institutions, but handling this, what they've been putting up with, has been absolutely horrible. And it would be really good to see them move in a different direction away from this dictatorship. Dictatorship that's on the brink of getting nuclear weapons, by the way. That's not a good thing. Then other news, I would truly and surely be remiss if I didn't talk about Minnesota. You know, excuse me, guys, I'm getting a little bit of a cold, so bear with me. I can't talk too much tonight. Minnesota, this thing is epic. I had to go back and think in terms of my old history classes of the worst scandals in American history. Well, what immediately comes to mind for us in our age group is Watergate. Huge scandal. Tammany Hall, New York City in the 1880s, huge scandal. Teapot Dome scandal, Herbert Hoover in the 30s, huge scandal, essentially brought down that administration. Then you take a look at this thing in Minnesota, and the only thing you can say, and the only words you can really say is the word epic. We're talking industrial scale fraud. What is this? $217 million paid to daycare centers in 2017. And that was 2017. They're saying at least half of the daycare funding in Minnesota is fraudulent. And it's so great to see that this governor is not running for reelection. But I think the best next step really is he needs to step down. Now, think about this. And I think it's quite possible that he will step down. Here's a guy who, not a year ago, was the Democratic nominee for vice president. And now he's being forced out. And trust me, he's being forced out. I'm sure that they pulled him into the back room, just like the old mob. The only difference is they're not going to give him a bullet in the back of the head. They pretty much told him, you got to go. Because if he's still hanging around when the midterms come, he's going to be a drag on every single person running for election on the Democrat side. So the faster they can get him out of there, the better off they're going to be. The better off Minnesotans are going to be. And heck, the better off all of us are going to be, because these are federal programs, not just state programs that they've been stealing from. So, and the other side to this is it's not just Minnesota. I think one of the things we have to think of is California's next. And word on the street is California is going to have its own scandal, which will, given the size of the state, will probably dwarf Minnesota. And we all know what a disaster California is. Yeah, Lori, I see your comment about Julian Assange saying 97% of our government's corrupt. I don't know, it's 97%, but it's pretty high. It's pretty high. I would not argue that. I would not argue that at all. So there is there's just such a lot there in terms of this. And I was reading this on California. This is off script, just on top of my head. I remember this. So California has lost a number of refineries who've left the state because of these crazy regulations and policies that Newsom is passing. I think they just lost 70% of the refining capacity just in the last couple of weeks because one of the big refiners just I've had it, we're out of the state. And not only does this harm California, but it's also a drag on Arizona and Nevada because they get their refined oil from that state as well. And they don't get it from Oklahoma, they don't get it from Texas. They're stuck with California. So what happens in California impacts those states. And Arizona is run by a Democrat governor who I think she stole her election. Nonetheless, she's Democrat. Nevada has a Republican governor. So you have both sides of the aisle have approached Newsom and said, don't sign this legislation. You're destroying us. And Newsom basically got on the horn on the press and just called them names, and they're just shills for the oil companies. This is what they do every time. Rather than get engaged in the debate and provide evidence based reasoning in order to support a position, they just start calling names. Whenever you see people just start calling names, you know that's someone who doesn't have a policy that they can support. The bottom line is the estimates now are the gas prices in California by this summer could be as much as $7, $8 a gallon. I mean, that is absolutely insane. And so the flight out of California is just going to magnify based on that. So just more interesting news, just in time for the midterms, by the way, which I think is an absolutely great thing. Then moving right along, I'm not sure if you all seen this news about the RFK and the childhood vax schedule. It's endless the amount of good news coming out that he is doing over there, and it is about time. I mean, you check out this news. They've removed vaccines. Let's see, include COVID, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, meningococcal ACWY, meningococcal B, rotavirus influenza. I mean, these are just some of the ones that they've essentially taken off the list. And those jabs are now going to be recommended only to high risk groups or with the doctor specific agreement, which is exactly what they should be. Everybody shouldn't be getting these. So, this pruning from the recommended schedule has reduced the total number of childhood doses from 88 to 30. I mean, 55 dose reduction. That's 2/3 of the total have been just chopped off. And you ask yourself, why were we taking all these shots? It's absolutely crazy. And then here is even better news. We're going to start requiring that double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized trials be done of these products in order to see if they are safe and effective. So no longer are they going to go around and be able to say safe and effective like parrots. This is what they told us about the COVID vax the whole year. Bark, safe and effective, bark. Oh, I see Leslie's here. Just a second to see if I can't pull her over here. Hang on, Leslie. Better late than never. Welcome aboard.
What a great time to join.
Yeah, you cut my parrot imitation
I
of
know.
Leftis on the.
No, you were saying bok. That's a chicken, but anyway.
Oh, that's okay. Safe and effective.
Okay, yeah, all right. That's a parrot. Okay.
Safe and effective. Well, I'm glad you're here. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, and to you.
Absolutely. Did you say gas was $2.89 in Eugene? Wow, that's amazing. What is it in Cali? Lori?
Oh, it's like $4.89 to $5.29.
You guys are getting
what is Lori saying? Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous, and they're warning that it could get up to 10.
Yeah, I was just talking about that before you came on about Gavin signing that regulation, and the governors in Nevada and Arizona saying don't do it. He did it anyway, and now we're talking $8, $9, $10 a gallon by this summer. I think California is about to get a brutal wake up call. I mean, brutal.
Well, there's two things going on that Gavin should be worried about. One is we have 8 different areas that have been called out by our auditor as being critical areas of critical concern. So 8 different areas in our government. And well, and Trump has just said that Gavin's in the sights. So right, so Tim Walz is down and Gavin's next. He's called that out on Truth Social. Now with the United States controlling Venezuela's oil, that is going to, and encouraging. I mean, we set up their infrastructure, right? So they confiscated it from us, and with if we can get that back under control, we can control fuel costs. I mean, obviously, that's going to make all the other costs go down. Household costs go down, but it's going to be a stark contrast if you have states like Arizona and Nevada with gas at $1.59.
Yeah, well,
and California trying to go for $8.
Oh, it's gonna be absolutely epic, and the timing of it couldn't be better. I mean, I keep going back to the good fortune that we had that the left stole that election. It gave them time to plan and strategize because all of this, the timing of this, they've been on their left foot the entire year. It's been a year. I don't know, has it been a year? No, he was the inauguration was like what, January 20th. So it hasn't even been a year yet. And you look at this. I mean, it's been nothing but a bloodbath for the left. No matter where you look, it's hard to even like remember this stuff. Like the successful military strike in what, Iran? That's like ancient history now. And now we just went. I mean, think of the of the machismo, the strategic thinking, the brilliance to be able to get the guy and his wife out of his own country, lose no aircraft, no helicopters, no nothing. Nobody gets killed.
No personnel. Yeah.
And 12 hours later, he's being frog marched in New York City into jail. It's like nothing like this is ever. And what's even more amazing is the complete face plant for Russia and China, who supplied the technology, the radar systems to be able to detect, the missile systems to be able to shoot, and they weren't able to fire off hardly a shot. Which tells you, it gives you a reality check in terms of just how powerful they are. They're not. And the press wants us to believe that China's so ultra powerful and Russia's so ultra powerful. They are not. They are paper tigers. I'm not saying we should, you got to take them seriously, but they are not these giant monoliths that everyone wants you to think they are.
Well, I think what Trump has figured out to do is play where he's strong and poke where they are weak. And so, there are areas that they could, literally kill us, right? I mean, but Trump knows where we are strong. And so he's playing off of those strengths. And, he got in quickly and he got out. And that was also strong because, you can see how, just how impatient and ungrateful the party is. That they've never stopped criticizing this man. Like, let's remember the alternatives here, and let's give the guy some credit. For if he stopped right now and all he did for his entire 4 years was what he's done so far, and we made Mike Johnson and the Congress try to actually formalize, legislate all of his executive orders that he's done so far. That would be enough, right? That would be barn door busting. Right? So I think that China and Russia are still a threat. He's just figured out a way to outsmart them in that moment.
Oh, and I tell you, I think the single biggest threat that we have remains inside our own country.
Oh.
That is without a doubt that party across the aisle. And then there's, of course, the Republican rhinos to go along with them. They are the only thing that could take us down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's so frustrating and disheartening to hear your own side start to tear apart what should be a victory. And we really need to be linking arms and, focusing on the big issues. You know, but I mean, like as Christians, we do that. Like, oh, well, when is the rapture and how long is the tribulation? And it's like, who cares, right? I mean, like, are we focused on Jesus? You know what I mean? It's like, let's just focus on the main issues and let's not tear ourselves apart on the minor issues. Is Trump perfect? No. Is he a blowhard? Yes. I mean, but is he the best guy for the job? Absolutely.
Well, yeah. And I tell you, sometimes you need a blowhard. I mean, I don't think anyone with any other kind of personality could have gotten this done. You needed somebody to go in. Think about all the fronts you had to fight at the same time and how easy a different personality would like fold under that. We've got the war on women, the war on children, the war on the educational system. You've got the war on Jews. You got the war on police officers. You got the wide open borders. I mean, I don't
war
even
on health. The war on health.
The war on health.
Life.
Yeah, these people have attacked us. Talk about asymmetrical warfare, and I'm talking about the internal enemy.
Yeah.
Not even talking about their allies in Western Europe or China or Russia. We've been fighting all of that, and so to be able to have someone who has the skill set to do that, it ain't going to be a choir boy.
No, and I mean, I just think it's so naive. I mean, we all work or live in the real world. Nobody who's doing anything bold, nobody who accomplishes any, grand mission is out there making friends. No. I mean, like, look at Jesus turning over tables and, forming whips, and, brother against brother, mother against father. I mean,
he clearly they didn't like him.
So I don't know. I don't know. I just, the whole idea, he should be nicer or he should, like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. If you wait for everybody to be on board, like, you just need to decide on the mission and get it done.
Well, at the end of the day, you have to have a results orientation. And again, I think one of the reasons why folks like sports, because in sports, you get results. You have a scoreboard, you can measure other metrics, but at the end of the day, one team is going to be the other team. And whether the coach is a nice guy or not really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you get paid to win the game. And that's what we have here. So you look at the metrics. Is inflation down? Yep. Is the trade imbalance improved? Yep. Are the borders cleaned up? Yep. Is crime down? Murder rates down? Yep. Are they chopping kids up like they used to? Nope. You just keep going down the list. Are those universities were trying to threaten Jews like no longer able to do that, and they've lost their presidents because of it? Yep. You just keep checking the boxes, and the wins just keep coming. And that's what's most important.
Yeah, it is. And just realizing, like, look, he's not going to make you happy. And all, I mean, the 50-year mortgage, stop it.
Yeah.
I mean, I there are things I don't agree with, like I'm so happy that we've got this new tariff dashboard, right? I'm so happy that we're able to bring in, all these additional revenues. I would love it if I saw some in my paycheck. I would love it if we saw justice being metered out equally. I love that, Tina Peters is now, back. Is she back on the street now, or has she just been, because I know that it was like a state case and not a Fed. The feds had, I think, kind of, she was that grandma that was in prison, for January 6th. And
I remember that, and I don't know at the moment, but yes.
Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely some criticisms, and really they're more like areas of impatience. He didn't create the problems, but now all of a sudden we're holding him accountable for implementing these solutions quickly because we feel the pain of the problem. Well, remember, he didn't create the problem.
Yeah.
We're fortunate. We're grateful that we have somebody who's actually focused on solving the problem instead of perpetuating it, worsening it.
Well, to see this much progress in 12 months is absolutely remarkable. I had the numbers earlier, and I don't know if I can remember these all the time, but we're talking the trade imbalance. I mean, it's in the trillions in the other direction already.
Yeah.
It's incredible to have that accomplished so fast. I think I saw GDP growth is like 4.5%. That's like radically good, and inflation's way down. I mean, by every significant measure. And
Yeah.
obviously, there's the immigration thing. And I know from maybe I talked about this the last time around. Every time I drive out of town, there's less traffic. And I saw it was a New York Times. They had an article about condo prices dropping. So
Hmm.
entry home prices are dropping. Why? Because there's less people around. There's
What
less of them on the road.
do you really think that I know there's been discussion. I don't what do you think is going to happen to the Venezuelan immigrant community here in the States as a result of the Maduro boot?
You know,
Do
you
you
know,
really think he's going to court all those people back, or maybe require all those people to go back?
yeah, I haven't even thought that far, so I'm not even gonna hazard a guess. I would think the thing is was to create circumstances in Venezuela such that they wanna go back. Um,
Well, if they're rebuilding uh, uh, refinery infrastructure,
mhm,
I mean, first of all, we've got two major companies, Valero and Chevron, who are leaving California because they don't
mhm,
want to put up with Gavin. And they're looking at, I think Chevron was looking at a $1 billion loss,
mhm,
short term loss from leaving.
mhm,
So as soon as I heard about, the Maduro snatch and grab on
mhm,
Saturday, I was thinking, ooh, I wonder if those guys read the tea leaves
mhm,
and maybe thought, we don't need to stick around California anymore because we might have an opportunity to rebuild infrastructure in Venezuela. And then of course you've got all the workers, you've
mhm,
got people, and these are blue and white collar,
mhm,
right? Who are going to be going
right,
down there. You've got all sorts of contractors who are going to be going down there. I mean,
mhm,
there's going to be money flowing. There's jobs,
yeah.
there's opportunity.
Oh, yeah, no, it's gonna be so great for Venezuela. That's one of the wealthiest countries in the world before, Chavez came along and destroyed it. It's incredible how fast they can ruin a country with communism and socialism.
Yeah.
Um, but on the other flip side, I think it's incredible how fast it can come back. I mean, think about the countries around the world that really are sitting on billions in natural resources, but they don't have the culture and the social infrastructure or the democratic systems to even access it. The entire continent of Africa is like that. But you don't have the culture that's capable of doing it. Look what happened in South Africa. Was one of the wealthiest countries in the world. They turned it over to the African National Congress, the ANC, and they destroyed it in 30 years. I mean, the lights don't even go on anymore. Um, and that is the result of the culture of the people that run it.
You're kind of breaking up for me. I don't know.
Oh, I'm
I don't
sorry.
know what I look like.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, yeah. Well, that's all
Can you hear
fascinating.
me
Then there
okay?
was this yeah, I can hear you fine. Uh-huh.
I can.
So are you
It was
familiar?
just sort of broken for a minute.
Is it back?
Yeah, I think it's back. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Did you catch this thing I just put in
You
here?
were, I think you were talking about broken cultures.
Yeah. Okay. Carol says that they can all hear me. So I think we're good. Yeah. No. So just broken
I was
cultures.
listening to a podcast interview that Tucker Carlson had with Mike Cernovich,
Hmm.
and they were talking about Maduro and
Hmm.
many other things, as Tucker is wont to do, and they were discussing how a lot of
Oops. I think we lost. I think we lost Leslie. So we'll go for a little while. We'll wait for her to come back. But- Wait, here she is. I think she's almost back. There we go. There you go. You're back. All right. You were as you were.
as I was, yeah. So maybe the crummy reception is just all me. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I was saying how what I got from sort of the broken stream of of what I got from you was talking about just again cultures and
Mhm,
how we've just trying to integrate cultures that aren't aligned with us,
mhm.
right? Is that kind of what you were
That's
saying?
correct. That's
And
correct.
and I was listening to an interview that Tucker Carlson was giving to Nick Cernovich, who and he was talking about, he was criticizing, a lot of these folks, mostly Republicans, who are complaining about the, America coming in and not basically running, Trump saying that we're going to run Venezuela until they can get things, locked down, which it sounds like they have somebody who they're going to at least give an opportunity to run the country. But obviously we're still going to have a heavy hand in it. But he was critical of the criticisms, because he was encouraged that, unlike where we went into Afghanistan or Iraq or any other country in the Middle East where we have nothing in common, like we don't have an agreed upon true north, right? We have a different religion. We're not tribal. We believe that boys and girls should be treated equally. Like, there's just a lot of things that, we don't, that we don't align on. Venezuela, that's a Christian country. It's a Catholic country, right?
It's great, because I spent the first 5 minutes talking about exactly this, but go ahead. Yep.
Okay. Well, I mean, then maybe I have nothing to add other than just, agree with you that there is some opportunity for us to have a better result in Venezuela. We have come to expect very poor, confusing, chaotic, bloody results, and drawn out over decades. And that may not be the case with Venezuela, because, and they're in our backyard. Their stability ensures our stability. And like I said, we have more of a shared culture than we do with anybody in the Middle East.
Yeah, and I think that is the singular thing that no one talks about. We've had success nation building. We successfully built West Germany after World War II, successfully built Japan after World War II. Both of those countries became like the top 3 or 4 industrialized countries in the world after that. Panama, we've done that, built the canal, built that country. If you think about that, what do those all have in common? They're either Christian or they were not Muslim, at least. And Muslim culture is not conducive to democratic institutions. And I'll just say one thing about it, and that is this: you have to submit. You have to become a Muslim. If not, then we cut your head off.
Yeah,
that is completely inconducive with any democratic principles. Christianity does not say that. Will you be a Christian? You say no. Okay, fine. You get to live. That's cool. You want to be gay? You can be gay. We don't think it's a great idea, but you can do that, right? So this culture is conducive to that. Other cultures are not, and that's just one thing. There's lots of other things as well, and so it doesn't work. So the closer a country is to Western culture, which is just another way of saying Christianity. By the way, and I have to say this, the reason that the left has taught us over the last 50 years to be afraid to say Christian. So we say words like culture, and we substitute words like, well, culture is the favorite one we use. Or we substitute words like Western or tradition. Nah, let's throw it out the window. It's Christian, because that's what it is. And the more countries behave in that direction, the more likely you are to have this thing successfully work. The further they are the other direction, where have we had a terrible time with this? Afghanistan, Iraq. Why? Because they're as far distant from that as possible. Now, there's other religions that are in between, where you might have not as much success. This is just observation. Buddhists, Shinto, animists, all of those kinds of things aren't exactly aligned, but they're not 100% against this. So that doesn't work in those places, and so that's just my observation.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like everything else. I think Trump has a plan, and there's much of it that we don't see.
Yeah, well, and that's been the beautiful thing about the strategy of it. I think how they robbed him of the presidency that other time around worked so great, because now you were able to, you saw how the swamp worked, you saw how nasty it was. One of the things you learned was hand select your own people and
Mhm.
select people who have been burned by that system, no matter what
Yeah.
party they're in. So you got people like Tulsi Gabbard, who was a Democrat. She got run out of the party. You got RFK, who was Democrat, got run out of the party, right? So you got people who are committed to the cause, who are truly conservative, whether they were a Democrat or Republican before. So that entire cabinet, look at how few leaks there are. They could pull these things off, and there's like zero leaks. It's just brilliant.
I can only imagine how much um, these people, well, of course, spiritual warfare, but I mean, these people in must be 24/7 monitored by the opposition. I mean, there is no way that and they probably have to like live in a cocoon in
Oh,
order to not be distracted or tempted or say something. I mean, like how hard is it to keep a secret? Right? Like how hard is it to
yeah.
keep things bundled up till Christmas?
Mhm. Yeah,
And
no,
you've got
absolutely.
amazing presents and you just want to tell everybody, you know? Um, and I mean, they're doing this
Mhm.
every day, big, of course, bigger. And nobody, like you said, nobody's squealing, not a crack.
They're cut out for it, and I, for one, obviously am a little nervous about it, but I'm also excited for the midterms because I think some pretty historic stuff can happen at this midterm, and as in something that rarely happens, and that's a landslide in favor of a sitting president because of the disaster that Democrat Party's created. I mean, who's the leader? Here we are, what, another year to go until the midterm, and you still don't. Is it Madnani? Really? Is it Newsom? Is it well, we know it's not Walls now. I mean, it's like it's just I can't remember the congressman from New York. It's just a disaster, and this is a good thing.
Isn't it awesome?
It's awesome. I mean, given I can't get over where we were 4 years ago to think that this is where we are now. It's amazing, and we have to thank God for that every day. And obviously, we have to keep fighting because this war is a
Well,
long ways from won.
and we are living in truth. What we see, like I can trust that the truth is being considered, decided, determined. It's not all based on less. I mean, the the instability, the like emotional instability that I had
Mhm.
under Obama and Biden, where it was like, what's up is down, what's down is up. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. People could get killed. People could get deplatformed. People could, you know, they could no longer be able to have a bank account. They could lose their jobs. They could lose their business. They could go to jail. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, it really happens. Like
Well, yeah,
when I was growing up, you would like, no, that would never happen. We're America. We're the good. Like
yeah,
that can't happen here. And
but it did.
here we saw it all happening. And
Mhm.
now I feel like not that that won't happen because
Mhm.
evil has been unleashed in such a radical way over
Mhm.
here, but we at least stand a chance. Now at least I have one arm out in front instead of just, both arms behind and
Yeah.
a bag over my head.
Mhm. Well, the cool thing is, I'm sure you're familiar with that term permission structures, right?
Mhm.
Which basically means that society allows you to not talk about certain things, and then suddenly you get to talk about them. Well, think about a couple of years ago how you couldn't say that maybe there's something wrong with all these vaccines, or maybe there's something wrong with these COVID shots, or or maybe a boy is not a girl can't be a boy. Um, you couldn't say these things, or you would have had to be looking over your shoulder.
Right.
Certain cultures are superior to other cultures. Um, you couldn't say those things, or you would feel really, and now you could just say them. We can have conversation, and is what is that? Nothing else but freedom of speech. If you can't share ideas, how can you get better at anything? And I submit to you that's one of the reasons why these cultures underperform is because the religion prevents them from sharing ideas. I mean, the Ottoman Empire was at the forefront of the world up until about the 14th, 15th century, and all of a sudden, all these European countries blew it out of the water. They didn't send a single ship to sail the high seas to do in the age of discovery. You're talking little countries like what, Portugal, the Netherlands, not to mention Great Britain, France, Sweden, Switzerland. All these countries are sending ships to the seven seas, and they didn't do anything. And I think a lot of that is because the top-down nature is a centralized authority, and you do what we tell you to do, and no ideas come from the bottom. All the ideas have to come from the top. And we all know the best ideas come from the bottom, where the people are closest to the work, where the ideas live.
Mm-hmm.
And not to mention the fact that you whack 50% of the population out because you don't want to hear from women. You whack out the slave part of the population because you don't want to hear from them. You got your class systems, you whack them out because their ideas are no good, right? So you do that, and a society is literally stuck in like the 5th century. And you see pictures, you look at the news, you see pictures of the landscape, and some of these cities, you can't believe, we're talking acres and acres of trash. Rivers just like filled with garbage. Somebody dies, you just wrap the body up in a blanket, throw it in the river, right? I mean, that's literally how these countries run.
Mm-hmm. Well, right. You've got families living in these huge dumps, scrapping for
and this is a
parts
conversation
that they could sell,
This is a conversation we couldn't have 3 or 4 years ago. You couldn't even say it. You can't say the obvious. Something's clearly wrong with those cultures. So what is that wrong thing? Well, they're obviously behaving wrong, because it has nothing to do with skin color. This has to do with behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If I put a white guy and a black guy in the boxing ring, and one guy's better than the other guy, it has nothing to do with their skin color. One guy has better skill sets than the other guy that result in him getting more punches in.
Right.
The same thing is true of everything else in life. Western cultures cause skill sets that result in better results than countries that aren't Western. I don't think this is rocket science. It's just you ain't supposed to say it. Which has huge implications for immigration policy, by the way.
Yeah, it does.
You shouldn't bring people into your country who don't share the culture.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Who aren't going to add, who don't, and
I mean, if I'm looking for offensive linemen, I shouldn't be going to gymnastics camp to go find them. It's not going to work.
Excuse me. No, that's right. And you're not looking for like a punter physique.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just, hey, I like gymnastics, but they don't make good offensive linemen. I'm just saying.
And vice versa, to be fair.
Yes, and that's true. That's definitely true. Can you see one of those offensive linemen on the parallel bars? That's likely to be an ugly event.
Oh my gosh. Or the uneven bars, you pull that sucker down.
They'd be uneven, all right.
That's right.
I tell you that. Oh boy, we digressed there, didn't we?
Yeah. So where did I cut you off from? I know you were parroting when I first came in, but were you doing something did you bring up any other things that you wanted to expand on a little bit?
Oh no.
Or you want to just keep going? Okay.
Yeah, you came in just in time, because I was just rolling along hoping, when is she showing up? Because
yeah. Get here. Yeah.
Yes. No, exactly. No, there's always pages and pages, and we're almost, believe it or not, we're almost at the top of the hour, as it turns out.
Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. Well, I've been like diving deep into conspiracy. I don't know why. It's just been sort of like the queue in my podcast, the library, at various people, but I feel like I've had such an entertaining last couple days hearing about revisiting the Oklahoma bombing, revisiting the I had forgotten that the Vegas shooting, 400 injuries, 60 dead, 400 injuries, and no answers.
And we hear nothing about that.
No answers. Listen to a fascinating interview with a gentleman who doesn't have the answers, but who actually went through a bunch of very credible theories and facts. not able to assert any one, you know, uh, you know, theory other than, this is what seems most likely.
Mhm.
But I was fascinated to learn how much the um, police department, sheriff's department, had concealed
Mhm.
and had revealed on one hand, but then told a completely different story. So that was, I mean, that was fascinating.
Mhm.
You know, what's his name? Macron is suing Candace Owens because Candace believes that, his wife Brigitte is actually a man. And he's suing her.
Mhm.
I mean, that's like the lunacy. There's just so much weirdness going on. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a great holiday. I was like totally checked out and got to listen to all sorts of things that I wouldn't normally have
Well,
the
that's the
time or
best.
the interest in listening to. But it's easy to get sucked into things that,
Mhm.
um, I love to let my mind go
Mhm.
and just, let it get creative and entertain things. I mean, that's
Mhm.
really what we have to be doing. I mean, we can't, we're not certain of anything.
Yep.
And the broader that we can keep our mindset, the more open that we can keep our mind to, because once you start to realize, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. Okay, well, if that's not like like we said, if the vax is not safe and effective, then pretty much anything could be possible,
Mhm.
right? You just have to open your mind.
Mhm.
If they are not mostly peaceful protesters, and if
Mhm.
BLM is a corrupt organization that has siphoned off bajillions of dollars, right? Like if you don't believe the narrative, then anything that anybody else proposes has to be entertained in order to get somewhere close to the truth.
Sure. Well, I think you have to always, we go back to that evidence-based reasoning. Show me the evidence. You can posit any theory you want. And as long as you're willing to provide the evidence, then I'm willing to hear it. And
Yeah,
then make a decision. You
yeah,
know, I might decide right, I might decide wrong. And that's what I think effective, good dialogue is all about, is just provide, the evidence. I think one of the things that I find maddening, I was talking to a couple of friends about this the other day. Over the last 30 or 40 years, we have allowed, again, I'll let the leftist media has persuaded us that we have to rely on experts. We have to look for somebody's opinion, somebody
yeah.
who's got a bunch of PhDs and degrees behind the name to tell us what to do, how to live. This all started back with the old Dr. Spock thing in terms of how to raise your kids. Should your kids sleep on their side? Could you sleep on your back? Oh, should you breastfeed, not breastfeed? Hey, women have been around for like what, 6,000 years. I think we got that figured out.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we're always looking for some expert to tell us what to do, what to think. We don't need any of that. You provide me with the evidence, and I got a brain. I can make the decision. Just give me the evidence.
right.
Um, and a lot of people have allowed themselves to fall into this. I need to have someone with credentials tell me what to do and how to think and how to live, and that is like the path to slavery, basically.
Well, and I feel like, look, you don't have to be the expert. You don't have to ever become an expert, but you just
Mhm.
have to be open. You just have to be willing to go down the road and ask questions, give yourself the time and the patience to
Mhm.
explore a a, a, a pathway of reasoning.
Well, here's a sobering thought for you. My son was telling me this. Now I don't know the veracity of this, but I've been around some people to make me think that there has to be some truth to it. A significant portion of the population uh, doesn't think, meaning
Mm,
their mind is a blank. They don't, in their downtime, they don't wonder about anything. I mean, it's
yeah.
literally nothing. I can't imagine, and I'm always trying to turn it off, right? But I used to work with a lady that I am certain that she was looking at the blank wall 3 or 4 hours a day, and her mind was just blank. My wife worked with a guy who sat at his, when we had those adding machines back then, and she looked at the tape. This is when she was a new employee, and she thought he was doing something technical. She looked and it was 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, and the paper was, like, all the way down to the floor. This is like at a government gig, right? This guy was sitting there all day looking out the window going 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. So there are people who are capable of that. I don't know what percentage of the population it is, but it explains a lot why people have to get punched in the face before they change their voting patterns, because they just don't think.
Yeah.
They don't reason. If I take the police off the street, crime, there might be a relationship. if there's less police, then there might be more crime. They don't do that. It feels good. It feels good to scream, "Get rid of the police! Get rid of the police!" And it sounds basic.
So who are you gonna call? Who are you gonna
Yeah.
call when somebody's shooting outside your house?
They
Who are you
don't.
gonna call?
They don't think that.
Because those are the same people that want us to turn in our guns.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or their grocery store closes, and they're mad at the store chain, and
Uh-huh.
not mad at their neighbor's son who's like robbing the store.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's that. Now this is not nice to say this in American society. We're not supposed to talk about IQ, but IQ is real. And if you can't make that connection, maybe there's an IQ issue, and maybe you can never get through to that. I don't know.
In which case, you need to be open to the idea that you just don't know. And so you've got to find the right sources.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Well,
anyway.
I'll say one last thing. We probably shut this down. And I always go back to this. Never forget when Biden and Trump had the debate. 33% of the population said Biden did great. 33%. So
I don't remember that.
yep, that was the data. I was watching. It was like on a CNN. 30%, 33% thought he won. Now 67%. That's a huge percentage. I would have thought the 33% would have been like 20%.
Yeah.
Well, 33% can't think.
Right.
No reasonable person would watch that and think he did all right.
Or they're just lying. Or I mean, of course, you might be right that it's a lower amount and they just don't want to admit it.
And that could be. So let's call it 20%, which is what I thought. I think 1 in 5 people are, and that's about right. That's why you have the 80-20 rule, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways. Well, my friend, we talked our poor audience to death, I think.
I know. Sorry.
Sorry, guys. We're so glad you're here. We always enjoy you all. Thank you so much for joining us on Captive Audience. And this was a great kickoff to a new year. And let's go get them.
Let's do it.
Ring.
All right. See
All
you
right.
next week.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.